So what's your podcast about?
Superheroes.
It's a little geeky, but I think you guys are gonna like it.
Try not to be too geeky.
No, I can't promise that.
Should we begin?
It's a bird. It's a plane. It's the Geek and You Shall Find podcast. And now, your hosts, Kelsey Dickerson, Brad Fay, Kate Fay, and Noah Berlin.
Hold on to your butts.
All right, it is time for the Geek and You Shall Find podcast. You've got the Superhero Faces team here. With me is Brad, Kelsey, Kate, Parker, and my name is Noah. We are here to talk about episode 6 of House of the Dragon called Smallfolk. So I have to say, first question, did you all notice the opening credits? We got the Battle of Rook's Rest. Did you see that? And the deaths and melees?
I've been skipping over those.
You've been skipping it?
I did not notice.
Oh.
Well, because the last episode, if I want, it was either episode 4 or 5 that they didn't update it, and I was like, okay, it was like the last one was a rat catcher still, and I was like, well, if they're not going to update this, then I'm not going to watch it.
I am shocked, appalled, disgusted. The fact that you skip, but it's still the song, it's the credits.
I was gonna say that's like it's
Oh
like
my
Succession level where it's like there are
Oh.
certain shows you're just not allowed to skip the intro, like even if they're not updating it.
The X-Men
already talked
animated,
about
you're
this.
gonna skip that? Come on.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, they finally updated that. They didn't last episode, but we had Rook's Rest. You see dead Sunfire, you see dead Meleese, and then you see. I was a little confused about this, but it looked like it's Aemond with a sword, like standing over Aegon. Maybe that was dead Rhaenys.
With the dagger?
No, like with the sword. I don't know. You have to see it next episode. Let me know what you think though, because that's what it looked like. Was Aemond going to kill Aegon? I don't really know, but I'm glad they updated it regardless.
Well, that is what Sir Kristen comes up on, so it makes
Exactly.
sense.
Yeah.
So maybe they showed that, but it might be like maybe it's not the person standing up. Maybe they're laying down and it's Rhaenys that's dead. I don't know. But anyway, I'm going to nerd out really quickly, and I'll tell you right now, I'm not going to use this as my MVP, but the thing that I enjoyed the most in this episode was the music. What's his name? Ramid Djawadi. There were 2 instances this episode. The opening scene when Jason Lannister's there with his army at the Golden Tooth, and then he has lions in the cage. They're going to send lions to battle, whatever. But the Reigns of Castamere starts playing in that scene. So that was so cool to hear, because you don't really ever hear that in this show. And then later on, when Alicent and Helena are leaving the Sept and the small folk go crazy and everything, they start playing the piano from Light of the Seven, which was from the episode of the same name in season 6, where it's like a 9-minute piece of music. It starts with that piano, and then the cello comes in. It's just like, it's beautiful. And it's that whole scene in Game of Thrones where everyone's heading into the Sept with Marjorie and the High Sparrow and all them, and Cersei is awaiting her trial, and then you see all the wildfire and the candle going down, and everything blows up at the conclusion of it. So it was so cool to hear that song again. I had to pause and be like, oh damn, that's dope.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I noticed the same thing. I don't know if I didn't get that I just recognized the music being really good. I wonder if they also use that during like the Peasants' Revolt from when Joffrey's like going through the streets and they throw the mud at him. I'm wondering if that's like the same music, like a duller version of it, since the scene's like kind of similar.
It's not though, because that was in season, I think, 2, and they had they made that specifically for season 6. And I think what the tie-in there, it's not the peasant, it's the Sept, because the Sept is what blew up, and so like it was the whole thing with all the chaos around the Sept in this episode. But anyway, it was super dope, and I just had all the nostalgia for Game of Thrones when I heard both Reigns of Castamere and Light of the Seven, so that was very cool. But without further ado, let's get into our episode breakdown from episode 6. All right. Power has gone all the way to Aemon's head. He threatens Aegon. He insults members of his council and basically asks his mom, "What do you do here?" before dismissing her from the small council. He does have the sense to ask his grandpa, Otto Hightower, to join them as hand, providing they can find him. Rhaenyra identifies Sir Stefan Darkling as a potential dragon seed and has the idea to have him attempt to claim Sea Smoke the dragon. It goes really well until it doesn't. Daemon's still freaking out. At least we get a Patty Considine cameo in the episode. The frustrations of the small folk in King's Landing boil over. That's what we were just talking about, and things get violent. Mysaria's plan to get commoners on their side by sending them Uber Eats is a large success, and she gets a little smoochy with the queen as a reward. And finally, Sea Smoke is seen flying over the beach again, beelines it right for Adam of Hull. After the chase, the dragon confronts Adam and allegedly chooses him to be his next rider, even though we don't see that happen on screen in this episode. But I have a question for you all, and I think this is a valid question, which will take us to the next segment of the podcast. Let's say, just think about this for a second. Let's say you are a commoner. You're a poor person in King's Landing or in Dragonstone, whatever. You're not a prominent member of these houses. Maybe you're a bastard. Maybe you're just a common person, but you're starving, right? And the queen comes to you and says, hey, we are looking for dragon riders. You might have a fraction of a percentage of old Valyrian blood or Targaryen blood in you, maybe. Come and try to claim this dragon. And you know that if you are able to claim the dragon, your entire life's changed. You're, up there with the queen. You're a badass dragon rider. Like, you're not starving anymore. Your family is good. But if you fail, you are going to die. So my question is, where's your head at? Would you take her up on that? Would you try to claim a dragon?
Not without like an ancestry DNA test.
23andMe.
I'm not trusting a book with a line going from me to 3 other. I'm like, no, I want like a test done to see how much like Targaryen blood. I'm not rolling the dice on that otherwise.
If I am like a commoner and I'm poor and I'm starving anyways, then yes, I'm like, what do I have to lose? It's going to be a horrible death either way. But if I was like Sir Stefan, where I'm like, I'm good, like I have a pretty good life right now, I'd be like, go. How about you go find someone else that has a little bit more than a drop of blood? Like
that dude got right on his knees, though. He got right on his knees, like, oh my God, thank you for thinking of me.
I don't even know. Yeah. If I don't have that blonde hair, I'm not kidding on that dragon. I'm sorry.
I was gonna say, I think I'd have to have a lot more idea of like, okay, I have somebody in my family that's Targaryen. Like, I actually have a shot at this. Like, I'd have to be a lot closer to the bloodline to actually give it a shot. Otherwise, no.
That's all well and good, though. But like, the queen comes to you. You're a bastard, right? You don't know who, like, your family, this person married this person, you're illegitimate. Like, you don't know. There's no way to check this stuff. But the queen gives you an opportunity. It's like, you are destitute. You are poor as fuck. You can't feed your family. And the queen comes to you and gives you this opportunity to change your entire life. Still no.
What number? I don't know if this would change my answer, but what number am I in the line of people who have attempted this? Am I like the 50th person they've come to because 49 other people have gotten killed? Am I like the second or third person that, has been asked? Like, would that make a difference to you, Noah?
I mean, I just don't think we would know that. But yeah, it'd probably make it. If I heard that 50 people have tried, all of them are dead, I probably would be less likely to do it. But if I don't really know what's going on, she just comes to me out of nowhere. Maybe I did hear that my guy Sir Stefan, he didn't make it, but who knows from there? Maybe I'd attempt it. If everything's going bad, then that's a way out. It's kind of like Damon said last episode, where he's like, this is how we can win or whatever, and then Alice is like, well, what happens if you don't win? And he's like, well, if we don't win, I'm gonna be dead. It's not my problem anyway. So.
What if Rhaenyra just has it out for you though, and she's like, I'm just gonna like kill this whole family, just go from 1 to 1, like say like, oh, you guys have Targaryen blood, go to this dragon knowing damn well you're gonna get burned alive.
It's like, I mean, at that point the queen wants me dead, I'm gonna be dead anyway. So but I think that's a good way to stay on the subject of bonding with the dragons. I think that was probably the main, or one of the main kind of themes of this episode, where we see 2 different people try 2 very different ways to bond with the dragons. And I thought, first of all, it was interesting that, like, the way that the highborn people, the way that they think that there is a, like, they got to be doing rituals and chants, and they're singing songs, and they got the people there, and you can't show fear, and blah blah blah. Like, you got to do all these things, and it didn't work, and that person's dead. And then what's his name, Adam, that we see later on, just runs away, and he's scared, he's terrified, and the dragon chooses him, right? So it's just like nobody knows how it works, and I definitely want to debate that with you guys. Like, how do you think it was that Adam of Whole, the bastard child of Corlys Velaryon, why do you think he was able to bond with Sea Smoke?
Do you think it has to do with like that bloodline? Because obviously, I mean, if she's missing her, like if she's missing Laenor, is Sea Smoke a girl or a boy? Do we know?
I think Sea
Girl?
Smoke is a boy and
Boy.
Cyrax is a girl.
Okay. So I'm like, if he's missing his writer and like is thinking that he's dead or whatever, maybe he's wanting someone in that line still. Like, you know what I mean? With that Valyrian blood. And I don't know. I mean, we can sit here and like debate all this stuff. Who knows if they're actually even following any kind of like precedent for why a dragon chooses you or not. But I mean, that whole scene in the very beginning of the episode where he's like, well, you're going to be off doing, like, why don't you want to accept like doing great things, blah, blah, blah. You're going to be a part of Corlys's whole thing. And he's like, I'm never going to be able to do anything. And then now he's going to be a dragon rider. So
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was my thought too, was just the bloodline because he's like so much closer.
Yeah, but think about this. Like, so he and Laenor, who obviously is a dragon rider, they are half brothers, right? Because they share a father, which is Corlys. Okay. But Laenor's mother is Rhaenyra, or excuse me, Rhaenys, who is a Targaryen. So he has that blood through Rhaenys, which makes sense why he can ride the dragon. Um,
are Valyrians not so, or is it only Targaryens that can
well,
ride
that's what they say. They
dragons?
say Targaryens are the blood of the dragon, right? So they make it seem like only they can do it. But at the same
Well,
time, there's so much ambiguity that like maybe it is the blood of old Valyria, which includes Valyrians too, or Valerians too, which so many confusing words that sound like.
Yeah.
in the beginning you see not Adam, but what's his
Alan.
brother's name? Al, you see Alan shaving his head and it looks like it's growing out white. So I
Yeah.
mean, but that could also be from the Valerian bloodline too. So I mean, I don't know, it's very confusing.
It is
Yeah.
confusing, and I think that there's no way to know. But it's interesting to debate, I think, like because there's a few ways you can look at it. You could look at it like, okay, maybe Adam and Alan down the line, maybe their mom, who we don't know who it is, maybe she had some Targaryen blood also. So both of them could do it, right? Maybe Targaryen blood doesn't matter at all. It just has to be the blood of old Valyria. So Valerians, again, like we said, and then maybe none of it fucking matters and it's just propaganda. And I think it's interesting that last episode at the end when Jace is talking to Rhaenyra and he's like, yeah, I have this idea to get the bastards and people that whatever. And she's like, yeah, but that's not a thing. Only highborn Targaryens. And he's like, yeah, that's just the stories we tell because it covers us in glory. And like, maybe that's not true. Maybe that's just kind of Targaryen propaganda. So maybe it doesn't fucking matter at all. And that's just what Targaryens want to be looked at as gods. Like they want to be looked at like they're better than everybody. And so that's the story that they tell.
That's
Well, I
what
mean, they are, so.
Yeah,
I think
it's
it's all
interesting.
smoke and mirrors. I don't think it's limited to them.
So you don't think bloodline matters at all. You just think, and this is the first time we're seeing somebody that potentially doesn't have that blood succeed.
It's
Maybe.
propaganda.
Okay. I mean, that's interesting. I have no idea where I lean in this, but I think it's interesting.
Well, if that's the case, why did what's his face? Sea Smoke or whatever burn the guy, Stefan?
Well,
He
sometimes they
rubbed
just,
them the wrong way.
and it's not every person that has that blood gets it. Like they talk about how Rhaena still hasn't claimed a dragon, like even though
Yeah,
Bailey had
that's
one for a
true.
long time. And so she's tried a few times. They said she's tried a few times and it hasn't taken. Thankfully, she didn't get burned, but um, it has to be a bond. They just assume it has to be a bond between the two, and the person has to have that blood. So it's interesting also to see that like you always think about it where the rider, the human being, has to claim the dragon and bond with them. But then you see in that final scene that like that dude didn't claim the dragon at all. That dragon claimed
Right.
him.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
dragon chose him. And it just, yeah, it was kind of funny to watch. But anyway, talking about that scene, the first one with Sir Stefan Darkling. First of all, I love that Dragonstone has like a little dragon garage. Like that's so funny. Like they pull in the dragon, they get off the dragon. Like that's a funny thing. And truthfully, we should have known when it comes to this guy. We were talking about him a few episodes ago. He was the one that escorted Rhaenyra to King's Landing to meet with Alicent earlier in the season. We should have known because we're like, who the fuck is this guy? Like, and then his dad died, and we're like, but still, who is this guy? We should have known that there'd be something else with him. Just to be put in that position because they never really like introduce random characters like that and then they don't do anything. But anyway, 0 for 1. Rhaenyra is 0 for 1 with her little her theory of trying to bond the bastards or whatever there. But how about that dragon wrangler or the trainer or whatever who just like he started getting on fire and he's like, fuck this, and just got in his throat.
Oh, I thought that was Stefan.
No,
Oh, he was like
Oh.
suffering. She looked back at him and he was like suffering. I'm like, yo, why did he get a knife?
Oh, damn. So he killed 2 people?
Yeah, oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, it was the
Oh,
dragon,
I
the
totally missed
tamer
that.
was next to him.
Yeah.
Also, I like how those sticks, like we talked about this before, but like, why do you think that stick is gonna do anything with a fucking dragon?
But they're also yelling, Kelsey. It's not just the stick. They're also
that's a good
yelling.
point.
They say, calm, calm.
One of my favorite things about the dragons, by the way, is that from birth, they just know High Valyrian. Like, they don't have to be educated or taught High Valyrian. They're not trained that way. They just, like, they know that language. And, like, that is their language, which is just interesting to me, too.
Flash Sunfire knows English because Aegon doesn't know how to speak.
Because Aegon's lazy as fuck, and he doesn't want to learn High Valyrian. You're exactly right. But also, did you guys watch the after the episode?
Yes.
So it really annoyed me. I don't know why it annoyed me, but it annoyed me a little bit. Where that final scene was, well, I guess it wasn't the final scene, but one of the final scenes was Sea Smoke coming. He has his interaction with Adam. Then they cut to Rhaenyra and her crew, and they're like, "Hey, we just saw Sea Smoke flying, and he had a rider. Like, who is it?" And that's kind of how the episode ends. But after the episode, the director goes, "Yeah, Sea Smoke has been claimed, and Rhaenyra needs to find out who, leaving the audience wondering what's going to happen next." It's like, no, we know what the fuck happened next. He obviously bonded with that dude. Like, what do you like? Did you not watch the episode you just directed?
Well, and I thought that was weird too. It's like, isn't that every episode? Are we wondering what's next?
Our aim for the episode was to leave audiences wanting to see the next episode.
Yeah, I don't know. But anyway, I just thought that the bonding with dragon process was cool. That was something that at least I, going into this series, really wanted to see. Like, we know the Targaryens are this power. They all have the dragons. Like, how does that work? We know, it doesn't work every time. So it's cool to see, even though it's a little vague, and maybe they expand on that and explain it more, or maybe they don't. But I thought it's cool to see, and particularly the differences in this episode for sure. Moving on in the episode, let's talk about Aemond. Let's talk about Aemond. Kelsey, do you hate? I hate his chin. I hate his face. I hate his voice. Like
his voice, like this.
Like his whispery. I hate him. Like, I don't hate him like I hated Ramsay Bolton or something like that, who's just like evil. Like, I just hate him. I want him off of my TV. I want to get him out of here.
Yeah, I don't know. And it was such like a strong, we were talking about like the episode or two before, where I think Brad like kind of mentioned this, where it was just like such a strong flip of like everyone was just saying like, oh, well, you know how Aemon is, this and blah blah blah. And it's like, yeah, like we've seen like things here and there, but like now all of a sudden, like he's the king regent and he's doing all this stuff, and it's just like, yeah, he's just very annoying. And everyone knows that he's trying to kill Aegon, / he probably had something to do with it. Like, you know what I mean? And everyone's just like letting him do whatever. It's just, I don't know. None of it really makes any sense to me. And he is just very annoying to me.
The bright side of that, though, is he wants to make an alliance with the Triarchy to end the blockade. And if you remember the Triarchy from season 1, we might see your boy the Crab Feeder 2.0. So this is very.
Did he die?
Yeah, he died, but maybe there's a second Crab Feeder. Maybe Crab Feeder 2.0.
Oh, he got ripped in half, so he might be like Darth Maul. Maybe
he got ripped in half.
Yeah, I think Daemon ripped him in half.
He didn't rip him in half. He probably cut him in half.
Yeah, well, but either way, like it just seemed like they built that up in season one early on, like it was gonna be such a big deal, and then it just ended so quickly. It's like, okay, that was fucking stupid. So I'm glad they're back because at least it's gives a little bit more importance to like the triarchy and what the fuck they're doing, I guess. But Aemond in general, like he doesn't interest me that much because I just again hate seeing him on my screen. But it is interesting, like what we've seen of him this season when he's with that madam of the horrors and he's just like, laying there naked in fetal position. Like he just needs someone to love him. It seems like he wants a motherly figure. Like that's what it seemed like. And so the scene really interested me when he dismissed Alicent from the small council. Cause like he was just like, again, like what do you do here? Like why are you here? But like it didn't seem like he was just being I don't know, he just seemed like he was being like pragmatic with it. I don't really know, but she says to him, have the indignities of your childhood not been sufficiently avenged? And she's like, touching his face a little bit. And like it seems to me that that's what he wants. He wants love and tenderness and a mother. I don't know.
I mean, I can't take credit for this. I saw it on Twitter, but like you're fighting a war. The whole reason that you're fighting this war is because you're sitting here saying like Rhaenyra can't be like the ruler of the realm, right? Because she's a woman. Like that's really like the whole, if you get down to it, like that is the whole argument of like why they're fighting right now. So it's like, yeah, he's sitting here being like, you are also a woman. You have no say here. Like, if you did, then Rhaenyra would be here. Like, you mean like it would like totally go against the whole thing that they're fighting for, and like why this war even started in the first place.
Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't like a mean dismissal, but it was just kind of like literally like what are you doing here? What do you offer me?
I don't remember what episode it was. I don't remember if it was this season or I mean it had to be this season, but early this season, Aemon comes into the small council and Alicent checks him and is like, yeah, what are you doing here? Like you don't have a place here. And
Oh.
now it kind of was the reverse of that, which also kind of, I mean, I'm sure that was on purpose, but yeah, it's like it seemed when she puts her hand on him and she's kind of insulting him a little bit. I thought he was just gonna like smack her hand away. Then he kind of like holds it for a little bit, and I guess just thinking about that, like, yeah, he wanted his mother to care about him, to pay attention to him, and she just never really did. Um, and to give it to him in that moment, but everything is too far gone at this point.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, you can really see that in like all of her children, right? Like, I mean, there's been a few moments with Helena that have been like a little bit better than like with her sons, but even then, like I really don't think she's just not a good mom. Like, it just is what it is.
I mean, you're totally right there. I mean, and then she says it when she's talking to her brother. I mean, it just shows that she's a shitty
Mm.
mother. And she's asking about her other son, Darren, who I'm sure is coming either next episode or the following one. Like, we're definitely going to see Darren. But she's asking about him, and she doesn't even know him. And Gawain, the brother, is like, yeah, he's smart and he's kind and he's as good with a lute as he is with a sword, and all the girls like him. And she's all happy about that. And she's like, yeah, maybe because I wasn't the one raising him, he turned out good. So she's like at least a little bit aware, but it's true. She's a fucking terrible mom. The way she's treated all three of her kids that she's with and raising, it shows in large part why they are the way they are.
Yeah, bummer for them.
Which makes it even funnier though when every time she's like, yes, somehow Eamon turned out to be like this. It's like, yes, somehow, because you fucking raise him like that. What the fuck are you talking about? Uh anyway, moving on to speaking of Eamon, his, I guess, who he aspires to become, which is Damon. So let's talk about Brad's boy Damon here for a second. And we see two visions that Damon had in this episode, broken up by a very important conversation with Alice. But the first one, and thankfully, we got our guy Patty Considine, who plays Viserys. He's amazing. It's happy to have him back. Got him back, and this is the first time that we see like a rehashing or a reliving of a scene that we already saw in season 1. All the other visions have been just like things Damon has wanted or things that have haunted him. He cut off Rhaenyra's head, young Rhaenyra's head, things like that. He had sex with his mom. But this was basically the exact scene that we had already seen in the first season, where Viserys gave his position away. He was pissed off at Damon. The thing I thought was funny was he's like, "Did you call the baby the what do you call him? Would you call baby air for a day?" And he's like, "You can't still be mad at that, right?" Which I thought was really funny. But I was happy to see the dude. I think that like the Damon storyline has gotten a lot of shit from people this season, from me included. But I think we're turning a corner there, and we'll talk about it. But what did you think about seeing Viserys back? First of all, I was waiting for him to have sex with Viserys, because that's every time he has a vision, he just has sex with whoever he's having a vision with. So I was waiting for him to fuck his brother. Kelsey got. What did you think about seeing Viserys again?
I was so happy to see him again. I love him. I miss him. Patty is just like incredible. And I was wondering like if they got him to come back to like act, or if they were just using like stuff that they had filmed from season 1.
I saw a behind the scenes photo of like him and Damon together, like smiling, just like laughing. So I'm assuming based on that, they did bring him back to shoot some stuff.
Yeah, it was definitely him.
Love it. Yeah. I thought it was really interesting too, like the scenes that they chose to like revisit.
Yeah, but that's why I think that we're like turning the corner with like all the bullshit revolving around Damon now with that. But after that scene, he loses his shit on your boy Simon Strong, and then he goes to leave. He's like, they're fucking with me, like they poisoned me, they did something to me. He's like literally leaving. He's going to walk to Caraxes, and he gets stopped by Alice. I was like, no, just fucking stop talking to her. Just go, leave, get the fuck out of here, bro. But
Caraxes said that too. Caraxes is ready
like,
to
thank God, we're gonna get the fuck out of here. But that scene was actually really good with Damon and Alice. Alice says a couple things to him to kind of change his mindset about everything, where she says to him, you think you're the player, you're not a player, you're the piece on the board. The throne is not a prize to be won, but a burden to bear. And she counsels him to basically do nothing, because in 3 days' time, the winds will shift. So, okay, Damon has a hard time doing nothing. But that's the second time this season we've heard someone give counsel to someone else and just say, don't do anything because you're just going to fuck it up, which was Alice talking to Aegon earlier. But yeah, then within 3 days, old man Grover Tully is dead. Oscar Tully is the new Lord Paramount of the
Wait,
Riverland.
is that serious? I didn't know it was Oscar was next in line after Grover.
Yeah, Oscar's the kid that we saw earlier in the season. He's like, yeah, I can't do anything because I'm like my grandpa or whoever is the Lord. But so Grover,
Damon's like, kill your grandpa.
Kill him?
Yeah. And Damon's like, yeah, you want to fucking smother him with a pillow real quick to quicken up your inheritance?
Who's after them? Snuffleupagus?
That's what I'm saying. Big Bird Tully is next in line. So
Or Bert and Ernie are the new twins.
dude, exactly. It's the new Eric.
You would love that, Brad, with all your puppet loving.
Would. But so she tells him that the fucking owl comes on her arm, lands on her arm. She talks to it, whatever, and then like I don't know. Then the dude is dead. So my question to you guys is like, what happened? Like, she was fucking with him this whole time. This is the whole season she's been messing with him, and now she's like helping him. And if that's the case, like, why do you think she's helping him?
I don't know. I couldn't figure that out, but I did notice that when he was talking to Simon, I don't know, later on towards the end of the episode, he's like, yeah, like he was really sick. And then our healer went to go treat him and then he died.
Yeah,
and I was like, she killed him, didn't she? Like but like, I don't know the reason why she would be helping Damon.
I I don't think she's helping Damon at all. Because, like, aren't they talking about that they're going to be marching on Harrenhal? Like, the Greens were going to be marching on Harrenhal soon. And, like, I feel like
Lannister.
that's what she's talking about. Oh, yeah, the Lannisters, like, are going to be there. So it's like, I think she's just trying to keep them there. And then, two, once Oscar gets his inheritance, then now you're, like, seeing, like, oh, like, the river folk, like, are fucking pissed at Damon. Like, rightfully so. Like, he's been stirring up all these war crimes and stuff. Not the kind of war crimes that we like, the kind of war crimes we don't like.
Yeah, but I don't know. I think that it seems in this episode at least was the first time I thought that she was helping him because he's like, "What can I do? I need help." And she's like, "Yeah, you can't do anything, but I can." Because he needed the Tully and the Riverlands army. She said the only way that the river like these guys all fight each other. The only way they come together is under the banner of the Tullys. And you need the Tullys, and if the old guy is still alive, you ain't got shit. So she's like, "You can't do anything, but I can." And then she goes and does whatever she does. And dude is dead, which now brings the Tullys and all the Riverland army into the fold, potentially to join him. So it's like, it did seem like she's helping him. I just don't understand why. And last episode, we were talking about, like, is she in his head? Like, is she real? Like, is
That's
is
what I
he
was gonna
seeing
say.
her? Because last episode, there was the point where Simon Strong walks in and she just kind of disappears behind him. And it's like, okay, is she a vision? Um, but then Simon talks about her in this episode. So I don't know. Where do you guys stand on that?
Well, on that note, I mean, she could still very much be like a vision or like a warg or whatever. Like, she could have been at this other place the whole time trying to take care of the Grover guy. Like, you know what I mean? And actually not physically been there this whole time. I don't know, this whole thing, I'm so over Harrenhal that it's like, I just don't, I really just don't even care anymore, honestly. I
Yeah.
hope Caraxes gets her ass out of there because she
Yeah.
needs to go help somebody. She's bored.
Well, the second vision was Queen Emma's death, and that was Emma was Rhaenyra's mom, the wife of Viserys, who died in the first episode of the series. And so we see that, and this is the first time we saw a scene that actually happened, but Daemon wasn't there. And in this vision, he was. And so Emma died. Viserys is fucked up. He's so sad. His entire, his life, his family is screwed. His baby boy, who was his heir, also died. And it was the first time we see Daemon be empathetic and be there for his brother and apologize and say, "I'm sorry." He's like, "I know you needed me and I'm here for you now." And I think that the fact that, like, he showed remorse, he showed empathy, he cared about other people's feelings, like, and then all of a sudden, what's her name, Alice is helping him, like, it's almost like this was a one big mind fuck, but like a test that Harrenhal or whatever was putting on him, and he finally passed it, by, like, showing the remorse that he needed to do instead of, again, fucking his mom or cutting Rhaenyra's head off or just doing things that were purely selfish. So maybe we see Daemon from this moment on, maybe come back around to, like, what we want to see, maybe joining back up with Rhaenyra, maybe doing things that are not just purely selfish.
Do you
Well, it
guys think
is.
they also brought back the wife to reprise her role and just lay on the table?
I
Was
hope
that
so.
was that
Make the
really
money,
her?
girl.
Like she
Yeah.
walks in, they're like, "Hey, hey, welcome back. It's good to have you back. All right, lay on the table now."
Be the
I'm
best
splashing a
job
little blood
ever.
on you.
I
Yeah.
would like to know like the background of Harrenhal and like who it affects versus who it doesn't, because Laris refers to like, oh, we don't have to worry about Damon, like he's gonna be fucked up. Like, you know what I mean? He basically is like, oh, like Damon is like a non-factor like right now. So clearly it's like there's something that the Strongs or that people who know Harrenhal know about. And like I don't know. I just would like to know, like, is there like a curse on it? Like, is it this Alice chick that like everyone seems to kind of know about, maybe doesn't know about? Like, I don't know. Like, I think that would help me understand, okay, is this person actually trying to help Damon? Like, are they just trying to trick him until like he can be there and get killed or whatever?
Did you catch in the scene with Laris talking to Aegon when he's on his sick bed? And we'll definitely get into that in a moment. I want to talk about that scene a lot, but he talks when Laris is telling his birth story and talking about all this stuff and say how he was born and he was screaming, he had strong lungs, but his leg was so twisted. And my dad, he accused a member of our household of casting malign spells. And so like when he said that, I was like, oh shit, maybe like Alice was around there too. Maybe that was the one that was accused. She's known of being like, I don't know, a sorceress or some shit. I don't know, but that was the first thing I thought of.
That's a good point.
Yeah, that's really good. I didn't think of that.
Well, and that would make sense of like why Laris didn't give a fuck about murdering everybody or trying to murder his family, setting Heron Hall on fire.
It's like that place is fucked already, and these people suck. So, but yeah. Well, shall we talk about that scene now? The Laris, or just what's going on with Laris in general? Because like not totally, but like my opinion on Laris has changed a little bit.
Wow.
Is that a
How
hot take?
so?
I felt a little bad for him when Eamon like really punked him.
No, dude.
I did. I felt the tiniest bit bad. I was like, oh shit. Like you got like, yeah, that was bad.
But he did that to himself. Like he was not doing anything sneakily at all. Like he thought he was being like this like cryptic thing. Like no one's gonna know what I'm trying to do. It's like you could read right through that. Aegon didn't know because he's an idiot, but like Aemond, you can't pull that with him.
Dude, Aemond made him look so stupid.
You toad? I was like,
But he was like, hey man, I think I got a good idea for you. I think you need a new hand. Like you haven't named a hand, and like Sir Kristen was like, your bro's hand, but like fuck that, he's gone. Like you need someone that like really is strategic. And he's like, first of all, you're an idiot, but you know what? You're right. You can have that job. And he's like, oh my God, you honor me. He's like, no, not the job of the hand, you dumbass. You're like, you toad. You go fetch Otto. Like, and he felt so stupid.
I love the other dude that was sitting at the table that whole time.
Yeah, that other guy was hilarious.
it's just like
It's
Yeah,
like
the whole
it's
time.
like being at work and like it's just someone that you hate and is like sneaky and sly and you're like, I just know, like, how is no one seeing your bullshit this whole time? Like, you know what I mean? And the other guy was like, finally someone saw this sneaky little slithery snake like being a piece of shit and he got his. So I like
yeah.
that. I like
And
that
I
for him.
like we talked about this last couple episodes or maybe last one, but we were like, we don't know what's gonna happen with Otto. Like he's still around, but like, is he coming back? So as soon as he said it, I was like, oh, he's coming back.
Yeah, but if there was
But they
another
don't know where
wrinkle,
he's at.
yeah, which is also
Well, yeah, I guess they can't find him now, but still, like they want him back.
He's probably off riding a dragon somewhere.
yeah, so Laris made his play for the hand. We saw that coming for a while. Like we knew that he was probably pissed when Sir Kristen got named hand instead of him. And so he made his play. He thought he was gonna be smart because he like, and remember earlier, like Otto was Aegon's hand. And Laris convinced him to dismiss Otto and pick a new hand. He thought it would be him, and it wasn't, but that he convinced him to do that. So Laris made that same play with Aemond, and Aemond, like you said, Aemond saw right through it.
It was really well done. Like it was really, really funny. Like I love the just different dynamics that were going on in that scene. And then Lyris going to like Aegon Raft. He was like, all right, shit, I gotta go back to this dude. You're starting to see him like grasp at straws now.
Yeah. But so Laris goes to Aegon, and this was one of my favorite scenes of the episode where like they just had some like cripple unity a little bit there. And the funniest part, like I won't say I cracked up, but it was funny how like the nurse is there ready to give Milka the poppy to Aegon. Aegon's in like unbearable pain. He can't fucking move. He's like, he looked very bad, very bad. And he's like, no, I gotta talk to him real quick. I gotta tell him my whole birth story, and I want his mind sharp to listen to my bullshit. It's like, dude, anyway.
You can have it in an hour.
Yeah, so he kept the milk of the poppy away from him to tell him his bullshit. But it we talked a lot before about Larry. What is he doing? He's schemy. He's like behind the scenes trying to manipulate things. Like, is he more like Littlefinger? Is he more like Varys? And I think there was a new dimension to what we see from him in this episode And just kind of like it seemed like I think the first scene so far that he's in it where he like felt real. Like I felt like he was telling the truth. He wasn't playing a game. And when he told his story and the way he bonded with Aegon, I just thought that was a really cool moment.
I agree. I really liked it. I would not say it was selfless. I mean, he wasn't doing that when he thought Aegon or when he thought Aemon was gonna like, like empower him up. Like he wants power and he's
Yeah.
gonna go wherever he needs to get it. But I agree. I thought it was a really great scene. And I mean, it just goes back to the point of like everyone knows what Aemon did to Aegon, and it's like that's going to be interesting when slash if that comes out, I think, and like how that plays out of either like Aemon's gonna like get Aegon or maybe that's how like Aemon gets his. I don't know.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, I really like that scene too. I agree with both of you. I don't think it was like totally selfless, but I also like it made him much more of a real person, and like we learned a little bit more of his backstory. And actually while we were watching, I told Brad, I'm like, this reminds me kind of the Tyrion speech when he's talking to, I think it's Jon Snow, right?
Perfect.
Like,
Yes, exactly.
yeah, when he's kind of telling him about like, you know, this is all that people see of you, but when you have this, you know, dwarfism or clubfoot or whatever, like people underestimate you. Like Tyrion's thing was him being really smart and educated and strategic and all this stuff. And people just didn't expect that because he's so tiny. So it just really reminded me of that. And I liked that kind of callback to the Game of Thrones world.
And it's also interesting, like Kate mentioned the Tyrion thing, and I didn't connect this till now, but you also, I'm not saying it makes you empathize with Laris because like he's horrible. I just think all the horrible things he's done have been off camera. So I think that's why maybe people are feeling a little bit like, oh, I heard his story. Like that dude's awful. They just don't always show it. But it did, I don't want to say justify, but to go along with those parallels of Tyrion, Tyrion killed his father, who shit on him all the time. And you kind of got, like, you never felt mad at Tyrion when he killed Tywin because you're like, yeah, man, that dude kind of put you through the ringer. So I think it did open that door up a little bit for Laris. Like at the time he did it, you're like, oh my God, but you didn't know the dad. Now to hear like, yeah, maybe the dad, shit on him his whole life and made him feel awful, where you're like, okay, now I can kind of see how he did that. It wasn't just like for power. He also like legit had a reason to dislike his father.
Well, Tyrion also kind of had to do that to save his own life. Like he was about to go down for
Oh,
Joffrey's
he
murder.
beat him in the bathroom.
Yeah. I mean,
Tyrion was
He
free.
escaped prison.
Yeah, but he was free. He could have got on the boat. He didn't need to
he
kill
could have
Tywin.
left and he turned back to kill him. Yeah.
Yeah.
But also he turned back
I
to
think it's a stretch.
Like it
but
was
hold
life
on.
or death. I'm like, Tywin was literally on the shitter and Tyrion was walking out
No.
the door and was like, I'm gonna go kill him on the shitter.
Tywin knew he was
turned
innocent
back.
and still wanted to fucking
He
have
turned
him
back
go
to
down for it.
confront. He turned back to confront his dad, but then he saw his girl, who he loved, in the bed, who had just been banged by his dad, and that was it. Where when he saw Shay was her name, right? I think something like that.
Yeah.
Then he's like, "Oh, fuck this dude," and that's why he did it. He didn't. I don't think he necessarily went there to kill him.
No, I agree. Well, when he went to the bathroom, I think he did.
Well, no, yeah, but at that point he had already seen and killed his girl. But Kate, I think that's an amazing point. I think you're exactly right, and the way that he kind of talked about, or Laris talks about to Aegon, now you'll never run again. All you have is your mind. And that's very much like the way Tyrion talked about himself to Jon Snow. He's like, cripples, bastards, broken things. And that's why I'm so smart. He's like, I'll never have a sword, like be able to wield a sword like my brother Jaime can. But that's why I read as much as I do, because the books are my whetstone, or whatever the fuck he said in season.
Mine needs books like a something whetstone.
Like a sword needs a whetstone. You're exactly right. So yeah, great point. But I just thought it showed Laris, and I'm not saying it was selfless. Like he definitely is making a play. Aemon made him look stupid. He's going to Aegon's trying to maintain some power. But You see him for the first time like as a real human being, not just someone that's scheming all the time.
I can see
Yeah.
that. I'll give you that.
Okay. So let's talk about Rhaenyra. Queen Rhaenyra, she is she's going through it still. This season has not been the strongest for her as a character. I think, as an as an actor, Emma Darcy's doing a great job, but so Rhaenyra is having doubts about her capability to win the war. She slaps the shit out of that dude, which I thought was great. His name is funny. I had to look it up just so I can talk about it on this podcast. His name is Bartimus Celtigar. Sure. But she says to him, if it's my fault, I think, that you have forgotten to fear me, which I also thought was a great line, and she smacked the shit out of him. And then when Jace is talking to her, she's like, yeah, he's basically like, yeah, everyone's talking about that shit. Like everyone's talking about it, bro. The fucking tweets, it's trending. Like everyone's talking about it. But I was happy to see her like stand up for herself, maybe finally.
Yeah, she did something.
She did something.
Yeah.
Little something.
I seriously am so tired. We talked about this before we started recording, but like I'm so tired of like the same stuff being like hashed over and over and over again, of her being like, no one respects me, my own hands, and like, or my own counselor or whatever, like don't listen to me, blah blah blah. I'm like, if she wants to be a bitch and like slap people, like at least it's her doing something, because like I cannot listen to her do another sob story. You're the queen, you're trying to like, you're raging this whole fucking war because you want to be like the leader of like the Seven Kingdoms, and you can't even get a hold of like your people who supposedly support you. Like fucking man the fuck up. Like I'm sorry. Like I'm really over Rhaenyra this season. I really don't care if she wins or not anymore. I don't care.
Hate
But
response.
Kelsey, she picked up a sword. She picked it
Pick
up.
up a
And she
sword.
looked
That's
up, she looked damn
progress.
good doing it too.
Well,
She
and
picked it
like,
up.
so but the thing, like, we kind of going back to that, like, the thing that like gets her like to go on her dragon and like just storm out of this castle like all crazy was like, oh, she finds out that Sea Smoke has a rider. Like, that is one of the most unhinged things that you can do. Like, we're sitting here being like, I'm tired of like not doing anything, blah blah blah. So you're just gonna go to this person that just somehow was able to like get this dragon, not knowing who it is. Like, I don't know. Like this,
Yeah, that
her
seems like
character
more
doesn't
of a
make any
dangerous
sense to
thing to
me.
do than go to Harrenhal.
Yes. Yes.
I
It's
was gonna say,
different.
where is that energy for Damon? Like,
Yeah,
Yeah,
go
go get
get
your
him.
man.
We
yeah,
listen, I don't disagree with that. We talked about it last time. You're not doing anything, just go talk to your husband and see what the fuck is up with him.
yeah.
Totally agree. But no, I think she snapped a little bit. Like she keeps talking about how she's not allowed to do anything, blah blah blah. And when the dude comes and is like, yeah, Sea Smoke is with a rider, she just snapped because she's like, I don't have anyone capable of doing this. We just tried, we failed, we have nobody. So the only one that can do it is the Greens. Like it has to be someone from the Greens that came over here, claimed the dragon right from under us, and that would put us in an even worse position. She's like, I got to do something, and like they're about to get these hands and this dragon fire from Cyrax. Like,
So
and
Why go by yourself? Like,
she just
go get
snapped.
Bela to come. Like, go with multiple dragons. Like, you just
Yeah,
saw what happened to Rhaenys.
and
Like, it
she's
just,
obviously going expecting a fight. She's
yes.
not, if she's so convinced it's someone from it's not like out of curiosity of like, oh, who is this? It could be like, if she thinks it's someone from Team Green, that means she's going into this expecting to fight. So it just seemed weird that, like, I get, Noah, like, yeah, she snapped. Like, okay, it's, like, that was the moment she chose it. But yeah, it was just like kind of crazy that, like, she listens to everyone when they're like, you can't go talk to Damien at Harrenhal. That's too dangerous. And then, like, she just bounced like to go into a possible like physical confrontation with another dragon.
Yeah, she's not making great decisions this season. Like she's lamenting on the fact that she's not able to do anything, but then she's doing things that are like super high risky. She's not like okay, I'll do this. Like this is an easy thing to still be involved. Like she goes from nothing to like doing things that are very
Yeah.
edgy, you know.
Yeah.
But I didn't have a problem with it, truthfully. She needed to feel like she did something. And when the guy's like, hey, should I assemble your council? Like, fuck those guys. You just want to talk to them. They're not gonna do anything. This guy now,
Right.
whoever it is, now has a dragon. Like, I'm gonna confront them. That's the only way to potentially defeat them right now before they go and join Vagar and bolster that side.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, I wanted to get to this later. It was like one of the notes I had, but since we're talking about it, what percentages do you guys give it that Adam is gonna be Team Black and not Team Green? Because like, I think Team Black already has like, I don't want to say too many dragons, but I think the scales are so tipping in terms of dragons. Like, do you guys think it's inevitable that he's gonna end up with Rhaenyra, or is there a chance he ends up on Team Green?
Well, he's serving under Sir Corlys, who is Team Black.
Yeah, I don't
But
think
he,
there's
As of,
any chance he goes
as
green.
of now,
I
he
think it's
is.
100% also.
You okay? So you guys feel that's wrong? I don't know. I kind of think the show needs it because right now all they're leaning on is Aemon. Aemon has the biggest dragon, but at some point, like, okay, but we have like eight. It's like not going
They
to be
don't.
close.
They don't. They literally don't. They have the only ones they have. Caraxes is gone, so they don't even have Caraxes right now. They
True.
basically have Rhaenyra's and Jace's, and Jace's is very small. That's like those are the only ones they have.
That's true. I guess I'm counting. I'm looking at the bullpen a little bit and being like, they got some dragons in the pen. They've got like Caraxes, kind of. But you're right. I guess surefire things. They don't have as many as it might
And
seem.
Caraxes is pretty big, but like even Cyrax Rhaenyra's is not big. Like it's not that big at least. So
And Jace's is small, so
Jace's is small. And then the other ones, like they sent babies away, so like no, they don't got shit.
okay,
yeah.
that does make it a little different. I was just like, man, at some point there's gonna be like six dragons versus one.
Well, they hint at the wild one that's in the Vale, but they're like, well, that's a wild-born dragon. Like, no one's going to be able to blah blah blah. But I feel like that's probably going to be what's Bela's sisters?
Rhaena. That was another one. Keep going.
That's why
Or I
you
was
felt like
just
that was heavy. I think it's heavy-handed if that ends up being the case. I think that's what
A
they
hundred
that's what
percent. It was
assume is gonna happen.
well, it is going to happen.
it,
Like,
it
because that's how
they,
House of the Dragon is.
they see her or she's walking around. They're like, oh my god, there's a big ass dragon here. Like then she's sitting there on the floor and they're all playing with dragon toys and she's talking about earlier in the episode, the same episode, Corlys is like, oh well, Rhaena tried, but no dragons here would take her as a rider. And it's like, okay, none here, but I just all in the same episode. It seems so obvious that Rhaena is going to be the one to claim that one.
That's why I would hope that's not what ends up happening.
I
I
would
hope
hope too,
they
but
want us thinking like, okay, this is so blatant and obvious, but then the second she goes to the dragon like, blows her up in smoke, and we're like, oh shit, like I'm hoping that there's better writing involved than like setting it up that obviously.
yeah, I have a feeling that's the way we're gonna go, which had me, that actually could have been my cringe moment, but yeah. But with Rhaenyra, she stands up for herself a little bit. She goes off like we just talked about, to go confront whoever this, the viewers are wondering who it's gonna be, the new rider of Sea Smoke. But then also she kind of shed some light a little bit on her relationship with Daemon to Mysaria, and I thought that was pretty interesting. Where she says about the two of them, we are halves to a whole. Both are and have what the other person wants. He is carefree. He's dangerous. He's a man, which is what she wants. She is cherished by Viserys and made his heir, which is what he wants. And so together, like the reason their relationship worked so well is because they came in, they complemented each other perfectly. They each had what the other person wanted to have. But now they're obviously not together. And she says he's never been appeased. He wished to possess me, not to be possessed. But just an interesting way to think about their relationship where like, you think maybe it is love this whole time, even though he was super manipulative and stuff when she was a kid. But no, it's more just that both of them embodied what the other one wanted. And it wasn't really about the person, it was about these intangibles.
Yeah, I kind of wonder if Alice is like, I was thinking about it earlier, like, we talk about is she real? Is she a ghost? And like certain things are adding up, like, oh, she was referenced by a character, so we're like, okay, she must be real at this point. But I was kind of thinking when I was watching, like, are these people like archetypes of Damon's imagination? Like, is this like a projection of what he needs in his life? Someone who tells him, be patient, wait for 3 days. Like, that's not, so I'm like, is this like different aspects of his mind that he's been kind of grappling with? And that's what she represents. Like, so, but, once they had that conversation about like, Rhaenyra kind of being that, then it wouldn't seem to make sense. But that's something I've like thought about with him.
I like that though. Yeah, so speaking of Rhaenyra with Mysaria, though, obviously they have that conversation, but there was a lot more to that relationship, at least in this episode. So, you see it kind of culminates with they bond together, they have trust together, and they share a kiss, and it was like a little sexy kiss. It wasn't a little kiss that they did something with that. So my question to you guys, like, was that earned? Like, what were your thoughts on that? Was it surprising? Were you like, I don't get this? Like, where was your head at?
It's unnecessary to me.
I
I
feel
like,
like, yeah, it came out of nowhere. To me,
yeah. There was like these little looks and stuff, but it really was only this episode that like we really had those. Like obviously their bond has been growing throughout. And you see like the trust obviously like going on both sides, and the Massaria clearly has a huge understanding of like how to be able to wage this war in a different way, which is invaluable. But it just, I don't know, it felt out of place to me. Like I feel like Rhaenyra need, like without Rhaenys and like obviously without Alicent and all these things, like I feel like Rhaenyra needs like a confidant that's like a woman, and making it romantic in that way is just extra to me, and like I don't know, it just adds a layer that I think it didn't need.
A lot of people were shipping young Rhaenyra and young Alicent and thinking there might have been something more to that relationship and that friendship than we saw on screen. So, like, do you think this was a continuation of that? Did it remind you of that at all?
I don't know.
Now that you say
I
that, it makes me not as mad about it because, like, I did think it was. I saw it coming a mile away, and it still bugged me and felt like unnecessary and forced, and like just something to get a reaction from the audience. But I do remember thinking when they were kids that she might have had feelings for like Allison and stuff. So, but I mean, it was never gonna happen. Allison strikes me as a big homophobe, so I never saw that coming to fruition. But maybe it is kind of like, hey, now's my chance with someone that like I do have that bond with to see if it can go to the next step because I never got to do that with Allison. Maybe that makes it a little bit more justified than how I was thinking it was in my mind.
I totally agree with that. I do think that there was some feelings going on between them when they were younger, but Alicent would never like being so like into the seven and being so religious and so like all about, you know, I don't know, the rules, I guess, that she would never go for that. But if she's looking for that with Missaria, they have not known each other very long. Like, so that's really weird to me. Like, I understand the Alicent and Rhaenyra relationship and like having those longing feelings, but with Mysaria, like she's only known her for a little bit,
But,
like a couple
but
weeks.
that's brings up like a really good question and something I did think about this episode. Like, we have no idea how time is working. Like, when Damon is told wait 3 days, the next time, like, whatever, like, I don't nitpick on like the show needing to be like, wait, 3 days passed here, but 3 days didn't pass here. But like, when Damon was told to wait 3 days, like we see the very next scene that the next time we see Damon, he's getting the news that 3 days has passed. So I'm like, since the time like she's been like at Dragonstone, maybe it's been month. Like we have no
But I,
concept.
but I guess my point still is like that their Alicent and Rhaenyra was over an entire childhood.
Literally years, yeah.
Yeah, literally years. And like she, for all intents and purposes, just met this lady.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm not like just, I'm just saying like it's funny you like brought that up like they just met, but I'm like I have no idea like how long people have been where, like how long has it been since they left, the King's Landing to go to Dragonstone? Was that years ago at this point? Like it's just very weird not having any concept of like how much time has passed. Maybe just because in the beginning of the show you were spoon-fed that every episode. It's been 2 years since his last name day. Like, okay, great, we get it. 2 years has passed. But now at this point, now it's gone a complete other direction where I have no concept of time anymore.
I don't know. Noah, what do you think about the kiss and stuff?
Um, I think that Rhaenyra is feeling lost and lonely and insignificant, and she found someone that she relates to in a way beyond like an advisor or someone that just like counsels her. Like she sees similarities between herself and Massaria. At least this is at least the way that I see the director and the showrunner and everything wanting it to look. I don't know if personally I feel like it was totally earned. Like it seemed a little random to me. I didn't have any problem with it. Go get it, girls. But um, yeah, I feel like they are pushing it as like, yeah, she found a confidant, someone that's different than anyone else. It's not someone that wants her for political gain. It's not someone that's sucking up to her because they think that that's what they have to do, or someone that she owes something to. She just finds like a like-minded individual, and I think they bond over that, and maybe that's what did it.
Yeah.
Also, I mean, does Rhaenyra know that Massaria and Demon banged?
I think so.
Yeah.
Does
Yeah,
she?
I think she
yeah,
does,
because remember
which makes it
in
real
season
weird.
one, Damon steals the egg. Once he gets banished,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
he steals the egg. He goes back. He's like, "Yeah, I'm marrying Massaria, and she's getting pregnant, and I'm gonna give this dragon egg to the baby." And then there was a whole confrontation where Otto was on one side trying to get the egg back. Damon's like, "Fuck you, I'm gonna kill you." And then Rhaenyra comes up and saves the day and gets the egg back and all that stuff. And so they had met before.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Forgot about that.
Well, I think it's time that we should go into our awards for this episode, starting with the MVP, the most valuable player, or the big winner of the episode. So, Brad, I would love to start with you. Who is your MVP from this episode?
Yeah, I kind of like I thought the acting in this episode and the writing was just so in sync. I really thought like I loved this episode. Like I know we talked a little bit about it beforehand. Like I really got like Game of Thrones like vibe from this episode because of the acting, the way the lines were delivered, those little like nuggets. I mean, between the scene of like Matt Smith when he pulled the knife on Simon Strong. I was like, this is like it brought me back to Game of Thrones of like what they're doing on that show is so great of like taking Shakespeare, which to me growing up my whole life, like Shakespeare was so boring, but they found a way to make it like so interesting. And I was literally like watching it like, oh, this is like a hint watching like a Henry the Fourth play or like something like that. And then literally in the next scene when like Alice says to Damon, like it's not a prize we won, but a bird in the bear. And I'm like, that's it's heavy's the head that wears the crown. Like, so I just really got like those good feelings of like it wasn't an action-packed episode, but like it brought me back to a lot of things I liked about Game of Thrones.
And did you guys have somebody that's not a character as your MVP?
I have no. Mine is a character.
Who do you have, Kate?
Let me just interject here. I have Adam of Hull slash Sea Smoke because I think they're just gonna be like really, really cute relationship as Dragon and Dragon Rider. And I just like it's so crazy to me that Sea Smoke like just like really like chased she really, really wanted or he really wanted this dude as his rider.
Yeah.
And I thought that was so funny that he like chased him through the forest to like get to him and choose him. But so MVP Adam, because like he really jumped up a peg or two on this one because he was a
Many pegs.
bastard. Yeah, a bastard and then like a ship worker or something. And then now going to like a dragon rider, which is supposedly only reserved for like royalty, Targaryens, like crazy. So I don't know what's gonna happen with that, but I had him for MVP. And then I also had with literal athleticism, the guy who threw a fish head at Allison.
That's
The
good.
queen of fish.
That's a fucking alpha right there, athlete.
I nailed her right in the face.
Right in the face. He's like, the queen of fishes, and fucking hit her right in the face.
I want to know if he like rehearsed saying that line. Like, was he looking at himself in the mirror that morning? He's like, no, here's how you're gonna deliver it. The queen of fishes,
No,
or was it
bro.
like improv
No.
and in the moment? Like, I want
He
more of
was
that, dude.
he was cooking. He was in the moment with that. And that's you're right, kid. That's MVP worthy right there.
Yeah.
Kelsey, who do you got as your MVP?
I have Miss Aria as my MVP. I mean, she went from being a prisoner to Rhaenyra to scissoring Rhaenyra, basically. So she's made great moves with her. And then also, I mean, even though you could go like either way, I think Laris is also an MVP this week. It just really shows I think this week showed his versatility and like his ability to be able to go with the flow, like truly, where he's like, okay, like Aemond like is fucking me over here, then I'm gonna go back to Aegon, like, and I'm gonna be able to get where I need to go and where I want. And then of course the little baby dragon is so cute. It's so small. I love it.
That's a really good point. We didn't talk about the shipping in the food at all. That was like a genius move. That's a good call,
Mhm.
Kelsey. That's a really good pick, actually, because like that could go a long way.
Yeah,
Already is.
totally. I totally agree with you. I mean, I think one of the Kate's was Adam was an obvious one. The other one is Massaria. Like she got that trust. She had, she's a strong female voice, just like you said, Kelsey, earlier, that Rhaenyra needs. She gasses up Rhaenyra the whole time. Oh, you picked up that sword. That sword looks good on
Yeah,
you,
yeah,
girl.
yeah.
Like, damn. So that was good, but you're exact. I mean, the plot that she came up with to send the food over to the Smallfolk, like it was smart. It worked perfectly, and like they were carrying her banners all the way up to the Red Keep. Like she's got them. They're chanting, "Long live Queen Rhaenyra" and stuff like that. So she got them there. And if you think about it, like it seems like this war, there's like three main pillars to the war, right? There's the dragons. So it's like obviously we gotta do the best we can, like recruit more dragons. We need more dragons on our side. You've got armies and like the great houses, and then you've got the common folk and the support of the commoners. And like single-handedly, Massaria is fighting one of those three by herself, and she's succeeded. Like they won that one pillar already because of what Massaria did in this episode.
True. She did
So,
do a lot, actually.
yeah, so I mean, and she got the little kiss, so good for her. She deserved it. So going to then LVP, least valuable player, loser of the episode, Kelsey. Who do you got as your LVP?
It's our boy, Sir Stefan. Why the fuck did he think that he could ride that dragon? And 2K, like you mentioned this when we were talking to, when he turns around, he's like, I did it. As he's like basically crawling on his hands and knees, so scared this whole time. Like everyone, like all the other dragon people are like, bro, like you can't be doing it like this. Like this dragon is not feeling you. And then he's like, I did it. And it's like, you hear that, like just you hear that, you're like, oh, you're about to be so Dracarys. See, Smoke is like, let me just make you think that. But
heard that he was like, no, you
yeah.
don't.
Well, and then hand in hand with that, like that was like one of Rhaenyra's like actual supporters, like in her council, and like he's just burnt to a crisp now. So they both are kind of LVPs in my mind in this episode.
R.I.P.
What about you, Kate? What's your LVP?
He's the real Sir Crispy, I guess.
Ooh.
Oh God.
Aegon.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Not true. There's a lot
Lots
of
of lots of
Crispies.
burns, which I guess makes sense with a show about dragons.
Yeah.
So my LVP was Damon. I mean, we kind of already talked about it, but he just like still is not doing anything and still having like these visions, which it was cool because Patty was in them, and it was cool to see Viserys, I guess. So we talked about that. But I also just think it's like crazy that he is not doing anything, but then talks to Alice, and then she's the one who's like doing all his dirty work, killing Grover and helping him out. And I'm just like, what are you doing? Like he has done nothing this entire show, which I know we say that over and over again, but because it's been beaten into our heads every single episode.
And he keeps falling for that witch. Like, she's clearly doing something to you. Like,
Hold on a second.
I don't know.
He loses his shit on our boy Sir Simon, and it's like, did you do something to me? Did you put? It's like, what? Well, you're coming at him? You think he did it? Like, oh, it's so obvious that bitch. It's obviously
Yeah.
fucking.
Why is he doing
Why
that?
are you asking him?
He's like, what are you talking about? That poor
Poor
guy.
guy.
I know. He's like, bro, like, I've been a great host to you. I don't know
Yeah,
what the
seriously.
hell.
Dude.
He's like bending over backwards, giving Damon all the lamb and stuff. And
Brad, who's your LVP?
LVP, I had Allison's dumbass, man. Like, just take a hint, get out. Like that scene when she should be smarter than this. Like, I get it. She's literally having her come to Jesus, like, oh wow, I'm not really respected. But at this point, she should have got it. There were like three moments when she's talking to like Aemon, and Aemon's like, she's like, oh, my counsel here is worthy. He's like, we're kind of good without it. Well, I do it out of my own heart because I want what's best. Yeah, we're kind of good. Well, I don't mind. It's no problem at all. Get the fuck out. Get out of the room. Like, I'm like, dude, like, come on. Like, you're not getting it at this point. Like, and then, it's interesting. I did think of this when I was like doing the rewatch. We talked about whether or not she'll start like digging in, looking into like the dream of Viserys, and whether or not like there is a different like Aegon that was promised and all that kind of stuff. It would have made more sense if they were gonna do that to have flipped it. Like now that she'd be bored and restless. It was weird that they kind of did that before, like getting beaten around and getting kicked out of everything. That would have just been a more interesting take to be like, well, I'm gonna like look into this then since I'm not serving any, purpose here. And then that kind of be what I don't know. I don't want to say it's gonna come back and bite him in the ass, but it would be interesting that if she would have found something that then like gets her to switch and that turns the tide. It's like, damn, maybe you should have like let her chill and give counsel.
I just think Allison thinks that the rules don't apply to her. Like, I think she's thought that for a long time. And like, so since, or at least ever since she was like able to be like the queen regent and stuff, like when Viserys was sick and dying and things like that, I think she's like, well, yeah, we're sitting here saying like Rhaenyra shouldn't be queen, but that doesn't apply to me. Like, I just really think she just thinks she's better than everyone else. And that's why the rules don't apply to her. Noah,
Yeah,
did you have a different? Oops.
yeah, no, who'd you have? Yeah, it just seems like she's had a lot of these like wake up calls, but then does the same dumb shit, which I guess that's life too. Like a lot of it, like, oh, I really learned my lesson that time, and then we do the same dumb shit. So like, I'm not gonna,
I
you
I
know.
can't relate to that, Brad. I don't know.
How did I end up? Yeah, oh, I made the same mistakes over and over. So like, I'm not gonna like fault a character for doing like being a real
Yeah.
human, I guess too. I'm not gonna like hold a character to like a higher standard, but I mean, storytelling wise, it just seems like okay, I'm kind of like sick of it from a viewer standpoint already.
Yeah, I don't necessarily agree. I think it's cool seeing the downfall of Alicent, I think is interesting to me. And I said I think last episode that I think that was the most interesting aspect of that episode of just seeing her like really come to the realization of the fact that everything she fought for, everything she's done, like didn't do shit, didn't mean shit because it's now finally affecting her. And if you go all the way back to her initial beef with Rhaenyra, it was like when they were kids, and she thought that Rhaenyra was doing some foul shit with Daemon, and she confronted her, and she was so outraged. And I think a lot of the thing, like the reason that she was so against Rhaenyra from like an early age was that Rhaenyra like had this free spirit, was able to do all of these things with no consequences. She didn't have to abide by these rules that were set for what women had to be, what was expected of them, and she did. And she played her role. Like she got married to this old ass man who she didn't want to. She popped out all these babies that she didn't want to, you know, and her life was never really her own, whereas Rhaenyra got to do whatever she wanted to do. And so I maybe like later on when she's the queen regent or whatever, like she's acting as the queen, she thought she kind of, okay, I paid my dues, but now I am safe in the, and even though it's still a patriarchy, it doesn't really affect me. I'm part of like the good guys. I'm part of the crew and I'm fine. And now she's seeing that like, no, that's not the case at all. Like you're always an outsider. You got lucky that you've been able to get this far, but like we don't need your ass.
That's a really good point.
Yeah.
100%. I totally agree.
Yeah. On a lighter note, my LVP is the poor commoner that got his ass beat by my guy Hugh, because
I was
my man Hugh, he's running through the streets, and he's like, everyone's freaking out. They got food, they got vegetables. And he's like, where did this come from? And they're like, Rhaenyra, she's thinking about us even now. Like, they're on boats, go get them. And he's like running, you know, everyone's excited, everyone's running with their vegetables. And he just pulls up on this random guy. He's like, give me that shit, and just fucking snuffs them. He's like Omar from The Wire. He just came up robbing people, just grabbed his carrots and just ran off with it, man. That guy did
And we're
nothing.
literally like, there's plenty for everyone. There's like 10 votes. Like, you gotta go get some. And he's like, but I want yours.
But he went up to like multiple people. He's like, hey, what is this? I'm like, oh, it's free food. He's like, oh, where'd you get this? Oh, it's Rhaenyra. Like, he went up to all these people, like, everything's fine. Then he just went and found this one guy, beat his ass. So yeah, he was on site with that, and I felt a little bad, but it was very funny to me. So that guy was the LVP for me.
That's so funny. Noah, I was thinking the exact same thing. I was like, why this guy? And also, like, they've kind of set him up to be like kind of like such a moral
Yeah, he's
character.
taking care of
you
his
know what I mean?
family.
Yeah, like, and I'm like, it's, I don't know. Maybe he had the biggest bag of carrots. I'm not sure.
That
Okay, maybe
family's
he's
gonna
not lettuce
definitely
and
end up
kid.
adopting that dog if it makes you guys feel better.
So
Oh,
another little point I have that doesn't is neither here nor there, but I was like, I hope this rat catcher's dog is getting paid per episode, because they are throwing him in to every single episode. Like he's in the background or at a point in every episode.
I saw
Getting
this
a lot of
picture.
use out of it.
I saw this picture of like it's gonna be like he's gonna be the next dragon rider. It's like him on top of like this dragon up in the sky.
I'd like
Oh
that.
my god.
I'd
so
Brad
like
sent
that.
that to me today.
My secondary LVP was when the Smallfolk, they're rioting and everything. The guy throws the fish at Alicent. They're like running away, and like the one guy, whatever, grabs Alicent. The fucking Kingsguard cuts his arm off, and he's just like, ah! Like the
With
scream
the
he
weirdest
lets out,
scream.
the scream and his face was so funny to me. It was so funny.
Yeah,
that
it
poor
was
guy too.
Yeah,
it
dude,
was
like
supposed to be such a like horrific moment. I guarantee you everybody watching was just like, what the fuck was that?
totally. You're supposed to feel like claustrophobic, like they're getting whatever, and it's chaotic. But like, dude, when they cut his arm off, oh, that was so funny. That was so funny.
And then he kind of like looking like, what the fuck did I do? Like he's just reaching out for his queen. And then all the other Kingsguards, she's like, sheath your swords, and then all the other Kingsguards get their asses beat.
I know.
But I'm like, at this point, you already cut a guy's arm off. Like, you gotta keep your swords out. Like, you're gonna get your ass. Oh man.
But another reason why Masaria's plan was genius, because when and Rhaenyra says to her, like, okay, we're gonna do this, but then Aemond and his people are just gonna snuff this out. They're like, hey, then the fire is gonna grow higher. Like, that makes the Greens look even worse now because they're fucking slaughtering the common folk. So it was really genius, the plan that Visaria came through.
Yeah. I mean, this was exactly to like going back, like the fact that Allison does feel like some type of way. This is exactly what she said was going to happen. She was like, you can't cut off like the supply line to your people of letting them in and out. And then I thought it was really genius. At first, I thought it was like them for like their feast that they were having. That obviously wasn't true, but like them showing like all the sheep that they were taking to the dragons. Like I didn't even put two and two together. Like, oh, you have all this food to feed your dragons, but not your people. Especially because dragons can go off like hunting on their own, like if they needed to, you know what I mean? But I thought that scene, I mean, I didn't like a lot of this episode, but those little plants that Massaria put in were really good.
The part where Hugh's wife was like begging for whatever the fuck food, and they wheel that wagon of with the sheep, and she walked up to it looking like she was gonna like take a bite of the sheep's leg or something.
Like a zombie.
They are starving. They are starving. Well, that's LVP. That's MVP. We have one more left. That's cringe moment. I don't have one for that. Does anybody have a cringe moment from this episode?
I have a cringe moment.
What you got?
And it's like the old stereotypical, like how we like first came up with this award. Like a lot of times, like I slip and I'm like, ah, it'll be this. As much as like Matt Smith killed it, and I talked about that scene when he was with Simon Strong, and like I just thought that was like such brilliant acting and writing. The very next scene we see him in, I thought that part was so weird when he's talking to Alice and he's like, so like what would you do in this situation? And she was like, oh, Damon needing help. And he goes, haha, more like counsel. I'm like, what the hell is going on right now? Like, why is there like the look on his face and he goes, more like counsel? I'm like, why are they being cute to each other? Like, what the hell is it? Like, I hated that moment. So that was my cringe of the episode.
What a random.
Go back and please go back and just watch it. Look at Matt Smith's face when
No,
she's like,
because
"Hey,
he's
listen to
like,
help." He goes like, "You."
well,
Like,
he's
I'm
like, I
"You know."
need some counsel, and she's like, oh, Damon needs help. He goes, no, I need counsel, not help.
But he said it all cutesy in a way you would never ever like talk to anyone like that. Like, you little kidder.
Good
I
lord.
I think that was your interpretation of that, Brad.
You watch. We'll
Okay.
talk about this next week, and you guys will see.
Okay.
I don't know if you guys know this, but Brad watches a different show where they all have like different names and like Brad
Yeah.
them.
Yeah. It's like
We don't
similar
know
to
what
not
Brad
be
watches each
watching,
week.
but yeah.
Brad watches the Sesame Street version.
Yeah. Do you guys have cringe moments, or should we move into final thoughts?
I didn't have one.
Okay, we can go final thoughts, aka what we're looking forward to seeing next episode. There's only 2 episodes left, which is crazy. Only 8 episodes a season, and we are through 6 now. So, for me, I'll just start. I'm excited to see this potential Aegon and Laris alliance. I wonder what's going to happen there. Like, obviously, Aegon knows that Aemon tried to kill him. Like, is he going to tell anybody? So I just want to see what happens there. And the last thing, this is not a spoiler. This is just my prediction based on obvious things we've talked about. But I'm excited to see Alan of Hull be the first mate and the heir to Driftmark, whereas Adam be the Dragon Rider. I just think that is, these 2 bastard sons who are going to be propped up in different ways. I think that's going to be really cool to watch. And that's all I got.
I don't think I have any watch outs that we haven't already talked about, but to your point, I am really interested to see what happens with the whole Aegon, Damon little triangle of things happening, because like there's been a lot of illusions that there's going to be something with Damon and Aemond, but is it ever going to get there? I guess we'll see. And then obviously the whole Damon or the whole Aemond and Aegon thing happening. Those are like my 2 storylines that like I'm most interested in right now.
Okay.
Wow. So we're not even going to talk about the Red Kraken.
Nah.
The best thing referenced in this story.
You think we see the Red Kraken?
God, I hope so. I need some Greyjoys.
They said that they haven't heard anything from the Greyjoys.
But they keep dropping that in, and now like they're offering up like Queen Regent to marry one. I'm like, I would think they're gonna play a bigger role in this, like,
Mm.
you know,
Especially if it
like
goes to sea, like they're talking about like, going against the trifecta, and then obviously I think like Corliss's like the sea snakes army or whatever,
yeah,
navy
they
and
they
stuff like are
definitely
gonna come
need
in.
that Greyjoy like navy, and like we've talked about, we know that family's not around anymore by the time we get to Game of Thrones. Like it could be the Greyjoys that way, because like by the time we get to Game of Thrones, like the Greyjoys own the seas, like that is the best like
Mm.
naval army you could get. So I'm like, is this how they end up like acquiring that? Like we have yet to see.
But Red Kraken's a badass nickname, I'll say that.
I know.
Yeah. Anything to watch for, Kate?
No, I mean, nothing specific. I'm just like really interested to see how they wrap this up in 2 episodes. So basically, like 2.5 hours.
Yeah, crazy.
It seems like there's too much to do in that time, but
Yeah, I did see that the final 2 episodes are gonna be like extra long, like
I
really
was gonna
long,
ask.
which is very cool. But at the same time, it's like if you're gonna have all these extra long episodes, just make it
Break it
10
up.
episodes that are
Yeah.
shorter. Like I would much rather have it that structure than this. But anyway, that is going to do it for the Geek and You Shall Find podcast. We will be back next week to talk about episode 7 of 8 of season 2, the penultimate episode of House of Dragon, second season. Make sure to catch us on YouTube, youtube.com/superhero faces, on all podcasting platforms. And again, make sure to like it, make sure to share it, please comment and subscribe. It makes a huge difference, and we appreciate you all for staying with us for that. Anyway, that's going to do it. Thank you so much, and we will see you next time.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Geek and You Shall Find podcast, powered by Superhero Faces. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And follow us on Facebook and Twitter at Superhero Faces, and on Instagram at Superhero_Faces.